All right, let's get into the first game we're talking about. That is number 10 Miami taking down Notre Dame, number 6 Notre Dame, 27-24. Let's go over the highest grade players, starting off with the Miami Hurricanes, starting off with that edge rusher, Ruben Bane Jr., 93.5 grade for him against one of the best offensive lines in the country. It did not matter for a guy who could go in the top 10 of this upcoming NFL draft. Up next, Damari Brown, the cornerback, 87.5. Wide receiver Malachi Toney, true freshman wide receiver, was really good with a 78.9 grade. Dalton, you'll talk about him later. Akeem Mesidor, the edge rusher, 77.5. Francis Mauigoa, Donnie's guy right there, 75.5. And Carson Beck with a very solid 71 grade in his debut as Miami's new quarterback. Next up for Notre Dame, the highest grade player for the Fighting Irish is Kingston Viliamu-Asa, 81.4. Jalen Sneed, the linebacker, 75.1. Another linebacker in Jaden Ausberry, 74.9. Safety Jalen Stroman, 73.1. Center Ashton Craig, 70.6. And the redshirt freshman, CJ Carr, with a very solid 74.2 grade in the loss for Notre Dame. Dawn, for you, the stats told story.
Yeah, there's a good amount of this game, and it's been the thing that's going around in the aftermath of it, of Miami dominating this game in the trenches, right? And if you're going to stop Notre Dame, especially in a game where they've got a redshirt freshman quarterback making his first start, and CJ Carr played well, but I think Miami's going to be really proud of their run defense. Their initial team run defense grade in this game, 83.5, led by Ruben Bane, who I don't know if it's changing through the review process, but his initial run defense grade is a 93.8. That is, if that holds, Max, that is the best in any game a Miami defensive lineman has ever put up since 2014. It's the best run defense grade, if that holds, that a Miami defensive lineman has ever put up in a game, which is just ridiculous. Ruben Bane was great. Akeem Mesidor was great. The entire front seven, and when you look at the effect that this had on Notre Dame, 23 design carries, 107 yards, 4.7 per carry, which doesn't sound bad on the surface, but that's well below Notre Dame's standards. 3 missed tackles forced, none of them from Jeremiah Love. 3 explosive runs, none of them from Jeremiah Love. Look, there's kind of the controversy there of what was going on with Jeremiah Love and the workload. I believe he'll finish the game with only 10 carries. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Seems a little odd. He had a couple touches in the passing game, too, in the second half. Something might be off there, but either way, even the touches he did get, he struggled to break loose. Jadarian Price struggled to break loose. CJ Carr, they tried a few quarterback draws, didn't work out too often, right? And he's not Riley Leonard. He's not going to. If that's the extent that Notre Dame has to go to feel like they have to manufacture offense, they ran 10 screens in this game for the first time in 9 years, right? And that last time, that was against Miami as well. Pretty interesting back in 2016. But you just saw Miami is the more physical football team. And Notre Dame, last thing for me on this end, 49.4 as a team run blocking grade. That was their worst since week 4 of 2019.
Yep.
The story of this game at the end of the day, and look, CJ Carr played well, Carson Beck played well, a lot of guys on both sides. You know, it was a very physical, tight football game. Notre Dame, obviously, with the comeback, but Miami's offensive line and defensive line, which you had as both top 10 units coming into the season, they won this football game.
Absolutely. And my stat told story is Notre Dame, basically going off right off that, is 54.1 offensive line grade for the Fighting Irish in this one. I said it in the preview and why I picked Miami to win this game. If Miami was going to win, they were going to dominate in the trenches, and they did just that in this one against the Fighting Irish. So, you mentioned before, Jeremiah Love, 10 carries total, 10 screens total. There's probably a lot of people looking at Mike Denbrock and saying, what were you doing in this game? What I will say is, when your offensive line is getting their freaking ass kicked every single play, it doesn't matter how many carries you give Jeremiah Love. And you can't be dropping back to pass 3+ seconds because the pass rush was getting there. So that's why they're throwing so many screens, because the pass rush was unfreaking believable for Miami in this one too. Notre Dame's worst offensive line grade in a game since 2022 in their week 1 game against Ohio State. 41.1 pass blocking grade as a team. The worst since week 1 against Michigan in 2018, 7 years ago. You mentioned the run blocking grade, worst in 6 years against Georgia. First time ever that Notre Dame was below a 50 in run blocking grade and pass blocking grade in the same game. This offensive line got worked by Miami's defensive line. And yes, listen, in my offensive line rankings, Alabama was number 1, and I am rightly getting a lot of shame for that because they aren't the best offensive line. I wouldn't say that right now. However, when that ranking came out, there were everyone in the comment section saying Notre Dame is by far number 1. I think I had the number 8. They're like, you know nothing. They should not be that low. This is what I was worried about. This is a young offensive line, and they were good last year, but they weren't outstanding. This Notre Dame offensive line I still think is good, and Miami's defensive line might be even better than what I thought they were entering the year, which I still had them top 10 entering the year. But this was never the best offensive line in the country. Never. And again, Alabama is not the best either, but why I had Notre Dame a little bit below most people, and everyone said Notre Dame is by far the best O-line in the country. It's not that. It's a good O-line. It's not an elite one.
And if I even a couple of veterans from last year's line, Pat Coogan's at Indiana now, is that right? Rocco Spindler, isn't he at Nebraska now? Is that? I mean, you had a couple of veteran guys on the interior transfer. And
I would say no Charles Jagersaw is tough.
That is tough, but you know what? I mean, you have to find a way to work through it. And Notre Dame is known as an offensive line factory, but in this game, and it was on both sides. It was the trenches on both sides. I want to make light of the defensive line too. Only 4 times all night they pressured Carson Beck. 4 times. And Marcus Freeman said it. He said it at halftime. He said it after the game. We did not get home with our pass rush. We did not get home with 4 guys. We were trying to help in coverage because Carson Beck's really good. Malachi Toney was awesome. CJ Daniels would just take the play of the week with the one-handed touchdown catch, right? But he was trying to help his coverage unit. They did not get home on the defensive line either, and Miami's offensive line was spectacular, especially in pass protection. The last time that Notre Dame had 4 pressures or less in a game was 2017.
Wow.
And that was a game where they played Navy, and Navy dropped back to throw 9 times. I mean, you're talking about even on the defensive line, it just didn't happen. And look, the secondary, in the second half got better, kept them in the game. We know Notre Dame, Leonard Moore, and those guys can play great man coverage. But at the end of the day, if you've got a disadvantage like this in the trenches, and Miami's superstars absolutely played up. Mauanoa on one side, Cooper, obviously on the right side of that offensive line, Bane and Mesidor off the edge, both of them just spectacular in this game. If you're at that much of a disadvantage in a game like this, and Notre Dame is a team that wants to control the pace of the game at all times with their run game and with their defense, you lose control of the pace, and that's how you end up down 21-7 and clawing your way back. And with CJ, and first also in a losing yet, credit to CJ Carr.
He's a gamer.
Because absolutely, I mean, he brought him back. Credit to CJ Carr. He's the guy. I have no doubts about that watching the second half.
If you told me Jeremiah Love would have 10 carries, I would say Notre Dame's losing this game by 14 or more, and he had him in this game.
And if you told me they were down 21-7 at any point, I figured it would just get away from him.
Yeah.
And CJ Carr is the guy. Yeah. I don't have any question about that. Now you're in a situation with Notre Dame where you got to play another tough team to block and another tough team with a really good offensive line on the offense in Texas A&M in a couple weeks.
Yep.
You feel like, and I know, you can always make it up and win 10 in a row, but you feel like that A&M game now is their season. And if you're at a disadvantage in the trenches again, it only gets harder.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think A&M had one of my top 5 offensive lines in the country entering the year, and one of my biggest concerns with Notre Dame, really the only concern I had with that defensive line, I didn't think was great, and they struggled in that one against Miami too. And considering you said 4 pressures is the lowest since the Navy game. Navy dropped back past 9 times. Beck had over 30 dropbacks yesterday.
Yeah, the last time they had exactly 4 pressures in a game was, I believe it was against Virginia Tech in 2016.
It's probably never happened since if someone's dropped back 20 times or more.
2016 is the last time it happened. Yeah.
So who was the most impressive part for you?
You know what? I'm gonna because you're gonna talk about the guy, but how about a true freshman? I questioned coming into this game the ability of Miami's wide receivers. A lot of transfers they brought in that we talked about. Some, they lost their top 6 receiving leaders from last year. You got a true freshman in Malachi Toney, man.
Not only a true freshman, a reclassed true freshman. We got another 17-year-old, Dalton.
I mean,
another Brian Williams 17-year-old.
Just ridiculous. The ability for him to separate one-on-one against this secondary. I mean, some of those whip routes. The guy that came to mind for me just as we were watching it was Josh Downs for the Indianapolis Colts. Just the level of route running and the ability to make plays. Malachi Toney, 78.6 receiving grade, 6 catches, 82 yards, the touchdown, 2.93 yards per route run, is efficient as anything. 3 missed tackles forced. I mean, Miami, he looked like he was their best receiver. As a reclassified true freshman, like you mentioned, Malachi Toney is a special talent. And, I mean, to do that in this game when the emphasis is how in the world are we going to beat man coverage, hats off to him. That kid looked like a star.
Absolutely. And, there's a quote that came out from Carson Beck preseason about Malachi Toney, and he said he's one of the best players I've ever thrown to. And you and I were like, dude, you got Lad McConkey.
You had a couple of good ones
Brock
down there,
Bowers,
Georgia.
who are 2 stars. And you're talking about this 3-star who is, according to On3 overall industry ranking, the number 420 recruit from 2025, the number 61 receiver in 2025. You're saying this guy is going to be as good as those guys? No, he's legit.
Score one for the lesser starred guys, for the underdogs here. I'm in. I'm taking. You're just making.
It's like the draft, dude.
You're just making my argument for me. I didn't even have to do the research.
It's
Feels
like
good.
It's like the draft. Look, a day 3 pick sometimes hit too. And Malachi Toney, I'm not saying he's a day 3 pick because he won't be if he keeps playing like this. But Malachi Toney is a star. Another guy who's a star and definitely will not be a day 3 pick is Ruben Bane Jr., the edge rusher for the Hurricanes. So one of my good friends in this football community who I love has a great Twitter to follow him, Kyron Samuels. He has a great tweet every single time saying, whenever a guy's a great day, call the family because you're going to make a lot of money. Ruben Bane Jr., call the family. You're going to make a lot of money after this kind of performance, man. This is the kind of game for Ruben Bane Jr. that not only can stamp you as a first-round pick in this draft, it could stamp you as a top 10 pick in this draft too. A 93.6 PFF grade for the edge rusher from Miami. 93.8 run defense grade. He had 2 run defense stops. He had a tackle for loss. He had a forced fumble. He had 3 pressures. He had a sack. He had a hit. And he had an interception too to cap it all off.
Were there any zeros in the stat line at all?
No. He was unfreaking believable. Again, against, for most people, would say the best offensive line in the country, they could not handle number 4 for Miami. Ruben Bane, the highest graded game of his career, the perfect time to have the highest graded game of his career. This is the kind of game that, scouts would look back at, saying, okay, against elite competition, what do you do? And he dominated Notre Dame's offensive line in this one. Listen, last year, he battled injuries, right? Didn't have the sophomore year that people thought he should have been having. But you got to remember, his true freshman year was one of the greatest true freshman years we've ever seen from an edge rusher. In fact, his 89.3 pass rush grade as a true freshman that year, at the time, was the second best pass rush grade ever seen by a Power 4 true freshman. The only one above him was Myles freaking Garrett.
Good player.
Who is the best defensive player, the best player in our opinion right now in the NFL. So I think Dylan Stewart did beat that pass rush grade this past season. So at the time, Ruben Bane Jr. was second. Now he's probably third behind Dylan Stewart, who's also going to be a superstar in the NFL, and Myles Garrett. But that's the company you're in. It was like Myles Garrett, it was Ruben Bane, it was Nick Bosa, it was Dexter Lawrence, and Harold Perkins in that group too. Superstars, right? So Ruben Bane Jr., do not forget that name. Nobody's going to forget that name right now. He is, in my opinion, right now a top 10 to 15 prospect in the 2026 NFL draft.
Boy, what a healthy 100% Ruben Bane Jr. looks like. That's crazy. I mean, to do that in this, and you just sit there, if you're the rest of the ACC, and you go, oh, what do you even do with that? Honestly, what do you even do with a guy that played like he did last? He's not going to grade a 93.5 every single week.
No.
But he's got the potential to. I mean, we've seen this, like you mentioned, since his true freshman year. This guy just, and especially in credit to Miami's secondary too. It's outside of maybe the fourth quarter. They played better in this game as well than we saw the last couple of years. But when you have a guy like that lining up like number 4 right there up front, it stresses you out.
Yeah.
And which makes the CJ Carr bit of this even more impressive to me, that he kept his cool and then found a way to tie this game. But in future weeks, these ACC opponents, if you're on Miami's schedule, we're going to talk about, USF next week against Miami. Florida's playing Miami. If you're DJ Lagway, if you're Cade Klubnik, if you're Miller Moss, if you're Haynes King, whoever else in the ACC, you better get rid of the football before number 4 gets to you, because it's going to be a huge problem trying to block it.
I'm praying for the Bethune-Cookman offensive line in week 2. I'll just put it that way.
Boy.
Because Ruben Bane, that's going to be a tough assignment for him.
Right now, I would.
He's making a case for edge 1.
I would give my condolences to any offensive tackle right now that plays Miami, because that kid right there is special.
He's making a case for edge 1 alongside TJ Parker for the 2026 NFL draft. So before we move on to the next game, 2 questions. 1, with Clemson's loss to LSU and with Miami beating Notre Dame, are you recalibrating your ACC thoughts? Is Miami the new favorite in the conference right now?
No, I'll still take Clemson as the favorite, but the gap has tightened.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, this has been a spectacular weekend for the ACC when you really look at everything that's gone on. You look at, other than Clemson, I should say, for the rest of the ACC, I think you look at the way everything's open. Florida State's win over Alabama. This win from Miami. Louisville, obviously, against a lesser opponent, looked really good. Curious to see them this Friday against James Madison. Duke's got some big games coming up, but I think they have to like their Georgia Tech going out. Everything, if you're a non-Clemson team in the ACC, this week went perfect for you. Clemson, the gap has tightened. I'll still say Clemson's the favorite, but this is now not as prohibitive as because we walked into this going, Clemson's clearly the best team. Carson Beck plays like that. Their O-line and D-line, I should say, plays like that. We've talked about it. The second place race in the ACC has now a lot more teams in it than we thought, and maybe the first place race is at least, the door is at least open. Clemson, again, they didn't lose that game by much. A lot of things went wrong. LSU played up. Nussmeier played up. LSU's defense played up. But all of a sudden, that huge gap we thought was there is now a bit tighter.
I still like Clemson a lot, but I think Miami's right there with them. Florida State's right there with them, too, after what was an incredible win over Alabama. And still a lot of other teams I like. That Louisville, SMU, Georgia Tech, Duke. There's a lot of good teams in the
And the road with some of the losses in the SEC that have been highly publicized, including a head-to-head one with Florida State and Alabama. You start to think about last year, the ACC got 2 playoff teams. If there was going to be a scenario where that road was going to open again, man, this week might have been it.
Absolutely.
Honestly, I mean, you got a lot of teams that got big wins.
If they keep playing like
weekend.
this, you could get 3 potentially.
It's not. It's everybody's just assuming the SEC and the Big Ten, they're all getting 4 and 5, and you got to go out there and win the games. But the ACC had a spectacular weekend.
All right, next question and last one. Notre Dame, bye week in week 2. Then you got top 20 team Texas A&M in week 3. Is that if they lose that game, are they done? Because I put out that tweet on Twitter saying if they lose, they don't play another currently ranked team, and now Boise State, after their loss to USF, is a way worse game for Notre Dame now. If Notre Dame loses that game, would a 10-2 record with their schedule be enough to get in? People are like, they're absolutely getting in at 10-2 no matter what. I'm a little more skeptical if that happens. Do you think if they lose to A&M in 2 weeks, are they out of it in September?
It's hard to declare them dead because if you reel off 10 in a row, and they did this last year where they reeled off 10 in a row, and I believe they were all by at least 14, or so they were dominant all the way. You have to be that dominant to at least give yourself a chance, right? Indiana did kind of the same thing even at 11-1. The problem is you look at these games and you go, okay, what makes up for 2 losses? Is it at Arkansas? Probably not. Boise, the way they just lost, certainly not. That's not going to be a ranked game. NC State's decent. USC might be the biggest one, but even then we're not 100% sure on them. Boston College, Navy, Pitt, Syracuse, as big a win as Syracuse would be. Here's the way I'll put it. They're not dead because I wouldn't declare them dead unless they got
a huge brand too.
They're not dead, but it's you're getting into conspiracies now, but they're not dead, but it's out of their control. And the problem is one of those at-large teams that they might be arguing with could be the team that just beat them.
Yeah.
Right? Because if that's what it comes down to, if it's the choice between Miami's 12 and in, if one of them is 12 and in and the other's 13 and out, they're taking Miami. They beat you head-to-head. And A&M, same thing. You lose to Texas A&M, and they're on the bubble because we don't think they're going to win the SEC. We don't think. Never know. But if A&M is another team, hey, these are the 3 teams, and these 2, well, they're going to pick between Miami and A&M. Like, as far as what's going to happen with Notre Dame, if they lose to A&M and they win 10 in a row, is they will be on the bubble with reasons not to pick them.
Yeah.
That's not what you want. They need to win this A&M game. If they win this A&M game, their destiny is in their own hands. They control their fate. 11-1 Notre Dame with this loss will absolutely get it.
Yeah,
they'll be top. They'll be a top 8 team.
Yeah.
They lose to A&M, it is out of their control. I believe that. You got to go in there and you got to dominate the other 10, which they could. You got to not. If you lose the 3rd game, it's over. Your season's over.
Yeah.
And they're going to need some help. They're going to need a couple teams to beat Miami to make that an argument. They're going to need, Texas A&M to lose a couple games in the SEC to make that an argument. The bubble will not be in their favor because when you look at the wins versus the losses, and you can say, well, they're 2 good losses. No loss is inherently good, and there's not enough left on their schedule, especially, you could have sit there before and made the case, okay, if Boise was undefeated going in and they were number 20 or what, ain't happening. Boise right now, with the way they're offensive, that looks like an easy opponent.
It could be a lot like the Indiana conversation last year.
But Indiana went 11-1.
True.
And they blew out everybody except Michigan. That was the only close game. They blew out everybody, absolutely everybody. They deserve that. If Notre Dame's, if they're 10-2,
it's tough. If they win 10 in a row,
they could finish the season. And I'm looking at these teams. You finish the season without a ranked win.
Oh, absolutely. I would say it's likely.
And if Indiana was 10-2, if they had lost to Michigan, they wouldn't have put them in either.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the facts. So no, you have to treat this A&M game as a must-win if you're Notre Dame, because this team with that loss at 10-2, maybe in any scenario at 10-2 on this schedule, they may not get in.
I will say the silver lining for Notre Dame is it was a 3-point loss on the road. If they got blown out, it absolutely would have been a must-win. So now it's like maybe the playoff committee can excuse it. And also, if they win 10 in a row, the playoff committee, well, they're hot right now. So like, and it's Notre Dame. It's a huge brand. Okay, I'm not going to, we're getting way ahead of ourselves on the note here, but that A&M game in 2 weeks, that is a huge game and pretty much a must-win game.
You talk about a trench team. That's another trench team, especially their offensive line. A&M's got a good offensive line. They got weapons on offense. They looked really good the other day on offense, especially. Not easy. And for that to have to be a must-win. And A&M, they're going to be fighting for an at-large berth as well. If they have a Notre Dame win under their belt, big boost to them. We'd have to check what else, but is that the biggest game of Week 3 probably?
I would say so.
I know Georgia Tennessee's in there as well. I mean, you just.
But it's the ramifications of that game,
yes,
though. Yeah,
absolutely. That's a must-win game for Notre Dame. It is.
All right, Notre Dame falling to Miami 27-24. We'll talk about the top 25 and how that affects it later on in this show. Donnie asking in the chat, when does the AP poll drop? I think it is tomorrow because obviously there's still one more game in Week 1 tonight, but between TCU and North Carolina, we will be dropping our top 25 today, though, because as big as that game is, and we can't wait for it, I don't think anything that happens in that game will affect the top 25. So that's why we're dropping ours, but I believe the AP poll will come out tomorrow.